too afraid to go home. Rohingya Muslims refuse to go back to Myanmar as yet another repatriation deal fails. I'm Imran Garda, and today's newsmakers are the 750,000 refugees stranded in Bangladesh. Over a year ago, hundreds of thousands of Rohingya fled Myanmar to Bangladesh, and with good reason. The persecuted Muslim minority escaped as their homes burned to the ground and friends and family members were raped and murdered. It was part of a brutal military crackdown, so severe the UN called it an act of genocide. But now Bangladesh wants them to go back. A repatriation deal with Myanmar was agreed, and after months of delays, the first batch of Rohingya was finally supposed to leave, but they refused until their demands for justice and citizenship are met. Now the refugees remain in Bangladesh, and no one is sure when or even if they'll ever be going home. Sandra Gatman reports.
Their message is clear. For Rohingya refugees, returning to Myanmar is not an option. It's where they fled from a military crackdown to save their lives. And yet, Bangladesh and Myanmar are pushing for the repatriation of nearly 1 million Rohingya Muslims back to Myanmar. Last week, not a single refugee agreed to return.
The military kicked me, killed my child which I was carrying, and shot and killed another of my sons.
Myanmar blames Bangladesh.
We think that Bangladesh has been weak regarding the logistical arrangements on the ground.
Bangladeshi officials say they're trying to convince refugees to return voluntarily.
We are committed to the principle of non-refoulement and voluntary repatriation. Thank you.
But the Rohingya have conditions.
Our demands are to be given citizenship and not to live in camps over there. We want to go straight to our own lands. If they agree, then we are ready to go now.
Myanmar's government calls those wishes impossible. It argues the Rohingya Muslims are Bengali immigrants who never belonged.
The decision to return home or not is the probably most important decision a refugee can make. It impacts definitely his safety and the safety of his family. The people ask for more information about their home state, and we support that.
The UN and international NGOs agree Myanmar may be unsafe for the Rohingya. The government has built transit centers to receive returnees, but critics fear refugees will be confined there. Thousands of Rohingya already live in camps in Myanmar's Rakhine state, where rights groups say they're denied freedom of movement and access to health care. Last week, more than 100 Rohingya tried to escape a camp. They were found on a boat drifting towards Malaysia.
The food rations they give us are not enough. What else can we do if we cannot work? We were told we would get jobs and be able to eat if we went there.
UN investigators also say the violence against the Rohingya hasn't stopped. And critics fear a repatriation process might whitewash attempts to hold Myanmar's military responsible for ethnic cleansing and genocide against the Rohingya, accusations Myanmar strongly denies. But Bangladesh insists the Rohingya can't stay.
What is our land boundary? 147,000 square kilometers. 160 million people. I am feeding them. I ensure their education, housing, medication, everything, creating job opportunity. I can't take any other burden.
Many Rohingya say they haven't lost hope. They will return to Myanmar eventually. But after what they've been through, it's trust that's proving the toughest to repair. Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Let's bring in our panel now. From Dhaka, we have Mohibul Hassan Chowdhury. He's the organizing secretary of Bangladesh's ruling party, the Awami League. In Frankfurt, Germany, we have Ronay San Nguyen. He's a human rights activist and coordinator of the Free Rohingya Coalition. And in Chiang Mai, Thailand, is Nyo On Myint. He was once a spokesman for Aung San Suu Kyi and is a former member of Myanmar's ruling National League for Democracy. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mohibul Hassan Chowdhury, let me begin with you, sir. Are those tens of thousands of Rohingya who were supposed to be, or the thousands who were supposed to be part of the initial wave, and then the others in the successive waves, are they justified in not wanting to go back right now because the conditions are not right and they don't have any guarantees about their future and their safety when they go back?
From what we have understood, from our objective point of view, this is the right time to go back. If it wasn't the right time, we wouldn't have allowed anyone to go back, because you see, the refugees that who cross the border, they're our guests, and we have looked after them. We will look after them, and if there is any more incident, we are prepared to take on more. However, we're also concerned about their claim on the land, because this land belongs to them. They were born there. They're local ethnic people in that area. So it's important that they go back and exert that claim. Yes, the conditions cannot be ever said that it would ever be perfect. However, them going back and international community keeping a close eye on their treatment would eventually lead to a long-term solution for these people.
Right, certainly. But Mohibul Hassan, if there's any chance that these people will be killed, harmed, have their homes burnt down, surely you would agree that they should rather stay where they are right now.
You see, we have dealt with the Myanmar authorities bilaterally, as well as engaging the international community and UN organizations. We do not think that there is any such threat at the moment, considering the level of attention received from all over the world. If there is any, of course, we will take whatever is necessary action-wise. So we are confident that this will not be repeated.
Okay, Rohingya Muslims, there's no major threat, and these people should start going back. Is that how you see it?
No, I don't agree with Mr. Chowdhury, because this condition there is unacceptable for the returnees. Just last month, on 24th of October, at the UN Security Council, International Independent Fact-Finding Mission Chair, Mr. Marzuki, has briefed there that genocide is ongoing. I have a lot of contact inside the Rakhine State. Just 2 days ago, 4 Rohingya internally displaced persons were shot by the police. So the situation is still remain unchanged. There is no guarantee that these people will not be persecuted again. These people will be allowed to go back to their original village again, and there are no assurance for restoring the citizenship. And the Myanmar government is offering them the national verification card, which is known as the genocide card, and we have been rejecting this card since 2015, and there is no guarantee for anything. And the refugee and the survivor who are now in Bangladesh, they make the right decision that they are refusing to go back.
Okay, so Nyon Mint, when we heard Rohingya Muslims say that these people are rejecting that card, which he called the genocide card, you smiled. Tell me why.
Okay, that's a too politicized towards the. I'm really, sad about that, the refugee issue. But when we look at the humanitarian perspective, when the Bangladeshi, the authority also mentioned about this is time to go. And then, I think the government preparation about the returnee is that it's quite a bit like another 5-star hotel you're staying, but I think are very reasonable. And then the security perspective, when the Mr. Ronsam Wins mentioned about the 4 people got shot because of they are human traffickers, and then they are trying to kill the policeman in the village. So that's the separate apple and orange issue. But I'm pretty sure that the 7,000 returnees was supposed to last week when they were supposed to come back. But this is another, dilemma about, in between the bilateral agreement.
Certainly. So let me ask you, as a former advisor, so as a former advisor and somebody who was a part of the party, right? So if you have this bilateral agreement with the Bangladeshi government, so there's a commitment from Myanmar, okay, we're going to take these people back. No matter what happened in the past, we're going to take these people back. And these people are saying we're afraid to come back. isn't it then the duty of the government in Myanmar to put out a message there to say, you will be okay, nobody's going to attack you, and we're going to provide security for you? Shouldn't they be giving these people some confidence-building measures?
I think the government got it. It's a process. You know, the very first time when you never try it, but you say that no, that's not the safe. But to be concerned with that, their security. I think the both gentlemen. I totally agree with the both gentlemen, because the whole world is watching. No one can dare to do anything wrongdoing or any extra, the unofficially, illegally trying to, block them or make them discrimination against them, because those are perfect houses. What I see that, and then they got to prepare. They got lots of international NGOs. Have been here to monitor every day, every 24 hours. So I don't think that's going to be dangerous for them. But that's that's a will. Then
you don't think it's going to be. You don't think it's going to be dangerous for them to stay in Cox's Bazar or for them to go back? Which one?
I think the go back is at the better, because I heard that the Cox's Bazar, that's so many. The killed by some militant Rohingya.
Okay. Well, listen. Previous repatriations have not worked, gentlemen. Have a little listen to a bit of a timeline from my colleague about what we've had so far and how it has failed. Have a little listen.
In the past, repatriations of the Rohingya from Bangladesh have been far from voluntary. After the first major influx of Rohingya in 1978, the Bangladeshi government ordered the return of more than 180,000 refugees back to Myanmar. Those who didn't cooperate had food rations taken away. Around 10,000 refugees reportedly died from malnutrition. After another wave of Rohingya migration in the early 90s, Bangladesh was once again accused of forcing returns. Only 10% of refugees had volunteered.
Rona Sanwin, let me ask you very bluntly, what would it take for these people to go back, if not happily, but with the psychological mindset to give it a chance? What would it take from the Bangladeshis and from the Myanmar government?
First of all, we need the international protection there, because this cycle of violence has been repeating again and again since 1978. So they need the protection seriously. And also, just a year ago, their loved ones were killed and slaughtered, burned alive. Children were thrown into the fire. Women and the girl were gang raped by the Burmese military troop. So they are really afraid to go back without international protection. And also they are seeking for the justice. So all the criminals who have committed the genocidal crime and the crime against humanity in Myanmar against these Rohingya people, they should be brought to the International Criminal Court and punish them, because this crime they are committing the crime again and again, because there is no justice and because of the impunity. So they should be punished, and also this protection is the most important. And 142 UN members voted in support of the recent UN resolution. They should do something. They should take the serious action against the Burmese military criminal.
Okay, so peace and repatriation coming with justice. I'm going to ask Nyoen Mint his opinion in a second, but Moibil Hassan Chowdhury, you want to come in?
Right. I just wanted to add to what the gentlemen have just said. Already International Criminal Court, ICC, have started a investigation proceeding against the specific individuals of the Myanmarese military. And our current Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, has spoken, beside all the other issues that affect Bangladesh, specifically on this issue at the UN General Meeting. And she has internationalized this issue enough for them to have enough international attention and focus We have repeatedly said that there had been genocidal incidents within Myanmar. We have records, we have the evidences, and if necessary, we will cooperate with the International Criminal Court to bring the perpetrators to justice. And our border will always be open for any persecuted people within Myanmar, be it the Rohingyas or the Karens or whoever it is. So what I wanted to add here is that you have to have confidence on Sheikh Hasina. She has taken this as more or less a personal case because she was so affected by the level of violence and the torture that she had herself witnessed when she went there. And not only that she went there, she had taken world leaders into that area and actually allowed them to see what had happened there. And I would ask the relevant community leaders, they keep the pressure on the Myanmarese authority. Unless they do that, you see, the ultimate objective is to have a sustainable solution for them in Rakhine State. If you give up your claim on the land that you have always been living in, ultimately this kind of this mass exodus will keep on happening. But in the past, Bangladesh and Myanmar had a sort of a bilateral understanding where this was not internationalized enough. International community did not give enough attention.
So it is
but this time it's different.
Certainly. And as was mentioned earlier on, the world is watching. Nyo On Myint, let me ask you, given that the world is watching, given that we've seen a symbolic expression of international justice in the sense that Amnesty International revoked their highest honor that they had given to Aung San Suu Kyi. They took it away now. They said she doesn't deserve it anymore. Given the scale of the accusations and the scale of the documented crimes, isn't it fair that the military in Myanmar comes under the spotlight or the jurisdiction of international eyes? That if people have committed these crimes, they are tried in international courts?
I think that's a fair enough to that because that the Myanmar military has already charged and jailed the troops and the officials and the very high ranking, and that those regional commander has been discharged and he was fired, and other, like in Indian village, they were being prosecuted. So then, that's going to be investigation and investigation.
So, but Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations are saying that those people that are prosecuting the rotten apples are actually the ones behind the major crimes. That's why there's a hunger for international justice here. That's why the Rohingya people are also saying we only want to go back if there's justice. Wouldn't that be fair?
No, because, before you got investigation, and fully, the whole international, the people said that why they are guilty, even without, that's only a one-side accusation. And then decision comes from a one-side accusation. And then I do not think that this is not correct for them. One side that was a genocide, the one side that they should come back, and that they should come back. So then why that people, it's a very dangerous area, why people wanted to go home?
Because they want to go home because it's their home, right? Ultimately, it's their home. That's why they want to go back.
It depends. Everyone who from the Rakhine, and then they should be welcome. And then because the third party was playing too much politicized.
Which was the third party?
I mean, those victims, those are refugees, those are 700,000. Yeah, but the other international, that the other day I met with the international community in Yangon, and then they said that they have only 800 interviewees at the Cox's Bazar. So they never asked that the people who are 500,000 Rohingya are very peaceful living in Rakhine State. They never ran away.
Yeah, but but 800 is a sample, right? You would accept that that's a fairly solid sample out of 500,000 people. But let me bring in Ronai San Win because we're running out of time. Ronai San Win, go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you, in the Rakhine State, there are still 500,000 Rohingya remaining. From them, 130,000 are in the concentration camp for more than 6 years. And also the Rohingya who are in the northern Rakhine State, in Butirong, Mongdo, and the Raterong, they cannot live from their village. They are living in the village like the prisoner. Wherever they want to go, they need to bribe the village authority and also the township authority to get the permission. They cannot travel from one town to another. They are completely like living in the, like the prisoner. Those people in the Sitwe are more than 6 years now in the concentration camp. I had the many private closed-door meeting with the many government high-rank officials. They use the camp as a concentration camp, and also the camp built at the border side, so-called they are calling the transit camp with the barbed wire. They are look like the concentration camp, So there is no freedom at all. There is nothing, no access to the education. There are the school from the government, but that the teacher are not going to the school. The children are not getting the education. There are a lot of things. That is the reason the chair of the IFFN said, that genocide is ongoing. I have a lot of contact there. I have built my own network there since 2012, so I have all the updated. You can just say, these people are living in peace. They are forced to accept the national verification card, which we call the genocide card. Just 3-4 days ago, 106 Rohingya were fleeing to Malaysia, but they were trapped in nearby the Rangoon, and they were deported to Sitwe, and they arrived today. They were forced to accept this national verification card.
Okay, you know what we're going to do?
We were once recognized as the citizen, and our ethnic Rohingya was officially recognized. So they have to recognize all of our rights, and they have to give back all our rights that we have before 1970.
I appreciate that from you. Listen, we're going to do another program very soon. We'll do another segment.
Yeah.
I promise you within the next few weeks, and we'll focus a lot on this verification card. We'll have you back on the program. I thank you for joining us because we're running out of time. Ronay Sanwin, Nyo On Mint, and Mohibul Hassan Chowdhury. I thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers. After the break, we look at another minority group without a home. We ask why thousands of Iraq's displaced Yazidis can't return to Sinjar, even though it's been 3 years since Daesh was forced out. And a European court rules against Russia for arresting one of Putin's fiercest critics. We ask if Alexey Navalny is a criminal or whether Moscow is suppressing pluralism. When the small town of Sinjar in northern Iraq was captured by Daesh, the terror group's brutal reign displaced hundreds of thousands of people. Most were from the Yazidi religious minority. But 3 years ago, Iraqi Kurdish forces regained control. But most of the Yazidis still haven't gone home. More than 70% of the town's infrastructure was destroyed. And the few that have returned say there's still no electricity, clean water or hospitals. And as they watch other parts of Iraq being rebuilt, they're asking why Sinjar is being ignored. Randolph Nogle takes a look.
Mount Sinjar has for centuries served as a refuge for Yazidis, a religious minority with a history of persecution. The signs of the Yazidis' most recent episode of torment are still easy to see. 4 years ago, as Daesh spread across Iraq, Sinjar was one of the first places to be captured. The full scale of what followed is still being uncovered, but new research shows that more than 3,000 people were killed in a matter of days. 7,000 more victims would follow. Many others were forced into sex slavery and forced to convert.
والله الاغتصاب هناك في سنجار. كم نفر كم تقريبا حوالي فوق ال 200.
The atrocities in Sinjar triggered the entrance of the US military in the fight against Daesh.
We broke the ISIL siege of Mount Sinjar. We helped vulnerable people reach safety. and we helped save many innocent lives.
The U.S. would widen its scope, with the coalition eventually defeating Daesh in Iraq and Syria. The war displaced nearly 6 million Iraqis, or 15% of the population. 4 million people have returned to their homes in Iraq, but very few to Sinjar.
In Sinjar, 3 years after the retaking of the city from Islamic State group, this place is still a ghost town. Streets are empty, you barely see anyone. Hundreds of thousands of Yazidis are still displaced across the country and cannot come back for security issues and also because of the lack of access to basic services such as water and electricity.
Many here feel forgotten.
We are back in Sinjar, but this is not a life we can live. We are simply alive. There are no schools and no hospitals. Several pregnant women died because of the lack of hospitals and doctors.
While others wish they could return.
Our situation in these tents is very bad. We feel that inside.
There are signs of rebuilding, but it's piecemeal for a place with 70% of its infrastructure still in tatters. For now, Sinjar remains a void born out of war and pain, with few signs that the help needed to fill it is coming. Randolph Nogel, The Newsmakers.
To discuss this, I'm joined by Yazidi activist Salim Mirza. He's with the NGO Yazda in Lincoln, Nebraska. In Baghdad is Yonadam Yusuf Kana, a member of the Iraqi parliament with the Assyrian Democratic Movement Party. I thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Salim, let me start with you. So, we look at a place like Sinjar and everybody is happy that Daesh was defeated and everybody's happy that that active mass persecution of the Yazidis ended. But 3 years on, a lot of people have not returned and there's nothing much to return to. Who do you blame for that?
If it's a blame case, we blame everybody. We blame the authority parties back in Iraq. With multiple names and parties. We don't give exception for anybody. Everybody is blamed. The international community is blamed to deal with such case with a minority who faced a genocide in 2014, and more than 7,000 people have been kidnapped, killed, and still 2,000 to 3,000 ladies captured by ISIS. They sell them out from area to another. Hundreds of members from ISIS were from different countries around the world. This case has not been taken as serious as should. So if it's a blame case, we blame everybody. I mean, no serious steps have been taken through this case or to help Yazidis people out.
Right. So Yonadam Yusuf Kana, as somebody who sits in parliament, as somebody who understands the discussions that they are having at the moment within the corridors of power in Baghdad, is it simply a case of priorities, that this government has so much on its plate that trying to rebuild Sinjar and repatriate Yazidis is low on the agenda?
Unfortunately, it's not on the agenda right now. On the agenda and the emergency issue is the establishing of the government. Until this moment, still 8 ministers are out of cabinet. And possible that maybe this establishing will collapse as well. I would like to add to what my friend has spoke about Sinjar or even Nineveh Plain. Both of them, Yazidis and Assyrian, Chaldean Syriacs in that region, the Christians. Unfortunately, we are victims of the conflict between Baghdad and Erbil. This is number one. And the problem is multi-dimension problem. And multi-dimension, first of all, is security. Second is political. The political is between Baghdad and Erbil, the so-called dispute area. And Erbil claimed that Sinjar is a part of Kurdistan, and Baghdad claimed that no, it is not. So today, the local administration elected by people before ISIS, they were trying to come and to go to Sinjar, for example, but they were prevented by the local forces in Sinjar because the de facto forces there are not linked to Erbil, but they are PMF and the local PMF as well. So Sinjar and otherwhere are victims of the conflict between Erbil and Baghdad, number one. It is on the ethnic basis. It is on the struggle, or let's say conflict between Erbil and Baghdad on the local region. So that's why now it's not first priority. People are not thinking about Yazidis, not about Christians. They are just trying how to fit this government, and after that they will start, as they promised, they will start by solving the things, refer to constitution, peacefully and legally and fairly.
Yeah, and I guess that is little consolation for so many people who want to get their lives back on track. Salim, we saw this being thrust into the spotlight, in the international spotlight, when Nadia Murad got the Nobel Peace Prize. Tell me why there still hasn't been the amount of support that you would like, even though she got the Nobel Prize and even though this was back on the table for people to discuss.
I believe in this case that I do agree. We have no powerful sources in order to have international community on, or I mean even our government. Iraqi government, which is the central government, and the KRG, to help Yazidis out. You have no oil. You are not like a strategic way connecting countries in order to have this area to help them out. As Mr. Yunadam said, I just want to add something here. We don't think as Yazidis that Sinjar belong to Yazidi. We don't believe that Sinjar is a Yazidi area. Even Iraqi government, they don't recognize this area as if it's belong to Iraq. Does it belong to Syria, Turkey? You never know. I mean, it's really weird. The other thing, if you want really to help Yazidi people, then you should take them, consider them, accept them are really partners. Real partners with you in Iraq. If Mr. Yunadam said the ministers, they are not yet in cabinet in order to help Sinjar out or to have it on their agenda. Sinjar, it's not a today of that has faces a careless from the government. Christians in the same way. It has been. It was neither before 2014 genocide. It's nor the after that. It's the same way that they deal with this case. There is no. And everybody had a role to liberate Sinjar. Now they feel that they got credit for that, and now the Yazidi people need to pay them back, and we don't know what we have to pay. It's our area. We lost our people. We lost our properties. It's normal thing to have these people back, as happened with all other in Afrin and Syria and in different areas, to have these people back to live in their normal areas and have it their dignity back and just live back normally in their area.
Yeah, the Norwegian Refugee Council refers to Sinjar as a ghost town at present. Things are not rebuilt. The place is in a bad state. Yonadam Yusuf Kana, when we talk of atrocities, rapes, murder, of course, Daesh, they were hell for minorities, be they Yazidis, be they Christians, be they Shias in a Sunni majority area. They murdered, they raped, and so on. And those murderers, those rapists have names, have faces. A lot of people want justice. They want people put behind bars or to face the death penalty for the crimes they committed. Tell me, in Baghdad, is there much input? Is there much appetite? Is there much movement towards trying to find justice for the persecuted minorities, such as the Yazidis and the Christians?
Unfortunately, again, I will say we are victims of this conflict between Baghdad and Erbil. So you see the Yazidi camps, over 16 camps in Kurdistan, 80% of Sinjar people are still there. Over 45 to 50% of Christians are still everywhere, are scared in KRG and diaspora and Baghdad and everywhere. Why? Because the region is not that stable. Yazidis cannot go to their homes between Dahok or Zakho to Sinjar. Why? Because it's a front line between Peshmerga and between Iraqi army. And in Sahela, till now, they cannot cross that road. They have to drive all the way to Mosul, and from Mosul to Sinjar, more than 5 hours on the way, just to bury a dead man, for example, a dead body. So I mean, we are victims, and Baghdad is not that much taken care. I'm sorry to say that. An international community, as my friend said, they have, if some government cannot help, cannot support, cannot protect their people, international community must move. So we have not to be victims of this struggle between Baghdad and Erbil. So people, they have to decide on their free will when they are stable, when there is peace, when there is justice. At that time, they will decide to where they belong or not to belong. For example, to be some local administration, Tel Afar or Sinjar or Nineveh Plain. So this is the problem. We are victims of the majorities in Iraq, either Baghdad or Erbil. So I'm sorry to say that, and that's the situation is miserable. Sometimes people are without. Now we are entering a winter, a very cold winter, till people has no any help and support, for example, to have energy, enough oil to heat themselves or to heat their kids in the camps or in Sinjar itself. 20% people are there back, 80% are out. The Nineveh Plain is a little bit more stable because not that much multi-dimension problem. So maybe 50% are back, 50% are out. So Iraqi government has to pay much more attention. International community much more pressure not to let those minorities become victims of this struggle, unjust struggle sometimes.
Right. Okay. And Salim, how do you feel about that tension between Baghdad and Erbil, especially after the KRG referendum, which Baghdad, of course, rejected and said we will not accept? There's bad blood between the two administrations, and Yazidis can't really move on with their lives and rebuild their lives or even get justice until those two sort themselves out. How do you feel about that?
Okay, I have 2 points here to clear out. One of them, if you want to involve Yazidis or even Christians in the political plan in Iraq, there is no way to have this two minorities or have Yazidis to go and involve in this and help them out, or to get Yazidi situation better. The first thing, you have to decide that Yazidi people have faced a genocide. Separate them from political. The second thing, we are not looking for a justice to protect us from external, risk. It's now, today, we need the local laws, the local legislations in Iraq to apply the law in Sinjar itself. Like, we have been attacked from people around us. Like the one of the major points that people could not able to go back and live in their area in Sinjar is the conflicts between the people. Themselves. We had people from our neighbors, like Arabs from our neighbors. They attacked us. They involved with ISIS. They were with ISIS groups. Iraqi local government with their local legislations, they need to solve this and try to punish those people who were who participated with ISIS to this genocide. Right. This is what they need to do. The second one, it's not only the KRG and the central government. The third thing is PKK, that they still in Sinjar. There are more than 2 or 3 or even 6 parties. They live in Sinjar today, and as I mentioned already, everybody takes that credit for themselves, and they try to get to pay them back, and we don't know what is this for. Right. And how to pay them back.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. The PKK also floating around there. Yonadam Yusuf, kind of very bluntly, in a nutshell, it's November 2018. Is Iraq a country that is safe for minorities?
I'm sorry to say that not that much. Not only for minority, but even for others. We need, as you said, rule of order. Rule of order is very weak everywhere, especially on the border like Sinjar, or like I can say even in Baghdad sometimes. A lot of people, armed people under many titles. So we have mafia sometimes confiscating houses or properties, and even in Mosul city itself, no, it's not that much safe not for minorities, but even for majorities, it's not that much safe. So we hope that the new government can move and to impose the rule of order everywhere. At that time, we can say Iraq is safe for everybody, not only for minorities. Second point is the corruption, which is the major point in Iraq. No investment, no development, and you know that we cannot have any public properties and public services and job opportunities if there is corruption. So corruption is very, very high still this moment. That's why there is no job opportunity, then no life opportunity. And they're confiscating everything for the majors. No contribution of the minorities in the government, and the discrimination sometimes in the employment. So all these things are one basket, not only it is safe or just not to be killed, but to live free and in dignity.
Of course.
That's the problem for the minorities in Iraq.
Okay, well said. Gentlemen, it's been really good to talk to both of you and get a deeper understanding of the situation. Salim Mirza and Yonadam Yusuf Khanna, I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers.
In terms of law, it's a game changer because now courts recognize that all these arrests, they're not just arrests, they're politically motivated arrests, and it means a lot, not just for me, but mostly for other people all over Russia who are arrested every single day.
He's one of Vladimir Putin's biggest critics, and according to his supporters, he's had to pay the price for it multiple times. In just 2 years, Russian opposition leader Alexey Navalny has been detained 7 times. Now the European Court of Human Rights has ruled his arrests have been politically motivated, and it ordered the Kremlin to pay him more than $70,000 in damages. It's a huge victory for the man Russia banned from running in the election earlier this year. An election President Putin won with more than 75% of the vote. So, was the court verdict justified? Let's ask our guests in Moscow. We have Alexander Artemyev from Amnesty International, as well as a political scientist and former Kremlin advisor Sergei Markov. Let me start with you, Mr. Markov. Was the court's verdict justified? Was Navalny politically persecuted?
No.
Why?
Alexey Navalny, because first of all, because of fact. Alexey Navalny worked some period as economic advisor to the governor of the Kiev region, Nikita Belykh, who had been charged for the corruption and got, I think, 8 years in prison for the corruption. And it looked like that Alexey Navalny took part in this corrupted team. And the court proved very well that Alexey Navalny had some kind of tricks, was selling some different materials, first of all, from forest to some trading companies with some violation of law, which clear profit for himself. So it was more or less clear that he was part of the corrupted team some of the period. That's one. Secondly, I would say that politically motivated is not so much Russian decision, but the decision of European Court of Human Rights, because we know that all decisions which issued about Russia all European institutions, they're politically motivated, if we tell that very softly, or politically corrupted, if we will tell it more clear and strongly.
Okay, so Alexander,
so Russia will not recognize.
Okay, understood. So Alexander Artemyev, the ones who are politically motivated here are not the Kremlin, not the Russian judicial system. It's actually the Europeans for supporting Navalny, who's just corrupt, according to Sergei Markov. What do you think?
Well, Amnesty International's position is very clear, that the European Court of Human Rights has acted in total compliance with the position of Amnesty International, that multiple times stated that Alexei Navalny, while he was in detention or under arrest, is a prisoner of conscience. So basically, the decision that was made by the European Court, it dated the 7 cases of detention during 2012-2014, but since then Navalny is repeatedly detained during the peaceful demonstrations that he has organized. So for us, all the talk about his being allegated of being corrupted or not. It's just out of consideration. So basically, we do deal with the fact that the right to the peaceful demonstration, the peaceful assembly in Russia is repeatedly and meticulously violated by the authorities. And Navalny, as a beacon of the freedom of assembly, as he's organizer of all mass protest meetings of the recent years, became repeatedly the victim of political persecution.
Sergei Markov, is the man a threat to President Putin, and that's why he's repeatedly arrested?
Of course, Alexey Navalny has no threat to Russian political system because it's a very simple reason. Alexey Navalny didn't support decision of people in Crimea to leave neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine and to rejoin with Russia. And this decision, as you may know, has been supported by 90% of Russian population. Alexey Navalny, no. He is part of the minority. Secondly, in fact, everybody knows that Alexey Navalny is under the political control of the United States political circles, if you want to say it softly, or to say strongly, he is controlled by United States intelligence service community.
Do you have any evidence for that?
Yes, the evidence is political one, but not technical. I don't able to listen to telephone calls of Mr. Navalny, but it's political one. Alexey Navalny has no one political statement which contradict to the political position of the Washington. So he is not Russian politician. He is American politician, appeared to be with Russian passport. Russians.
So let me ask, this is interesting. So Alexander, help me understand, right? So what we're hearing from Sergei Markov, and Mr. Markov, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what Mr. Markov is saying is very much what we're hearing from the Kremlin when it comes to someone like Mr. Navalny, that it's clear that others are behind him. Others from the West are behind him, and they're using him to try and undermine the Russian system. Is that unique? Is that something that checks out, maybe even a little bit?
Well, what we can say that over the recent years, the Kremlin itself proved that Navalny is the biggest threat to the regime, and it became more obvious during the last years, during 2017 and 18, when all political actions that were led by Alexey Navalny were dispersed brutally and violently disintegrated, and all his coordinators in all Russian regions have faced a lot of pressure from the authorities. They were threatened, they were intimidated, they were arrested. So no other political force in Russia has the same pressure put on it by Kremlin. So we don't have to search for evidences to call Navalny the leader of opposition and the biggest threat to the Kremlin, as Kremlin itself does everything to make us believe so.
Alexander, how much support does he have on the streets? You live there, you understand the situation better than us. How much support does he have, especially amongst young people?
Well, the numbers are those that we can say that Navalny assembles the most populated, the biggest protest demonstrations among all political forces. Only Communist Party can be rival to him, but still Communist Party has like regional headquarters all over the country. It's well-established political organizations with more than 20 years of experience, while Navalny has nothing in particular. So basically, he tried to register his own political party for many times, and all the times he was refused to do so. So basically, if we compare like well-established political party that has its representation in the parliament and just a network of political supporters of Alexey Navalny, so basically they are of the same force.
Right.
So we can say if Navalny one day is given the same freedom of maneuver as Communist Party has, so for sure it will be the biggest and the leading opposition force in the country.
Sergei Markov, the man is not in jail at the moment. He's a free man at the moment. If there are no further charges against him, would you support him running in future elections?
Of course not. How I will remember how I can support the guy who is, in fact, not Russian politician but American politician who was just only with Russian passport. I can repeat again and again. Alexey Navalny has no one political position which is contradict to the political position of the government of United States. So he is not regarded as serious. What is regarded as serious is those behind him. Alexey Navalny just one of the weapon of the real rival of the Russian government, which is Western coalitions. We have aggression in form of the hybrid war against Russia, which is organized, orchestrated, financed, and moved forward by United States, deep state, Great Britain, deep state, and some another network.
Okay, you seem to be convinced of that.
People already made the coup in Ukraine. How we not take it seriously? They're really very serious guy. But Alexey Navalny just one of the tool of those great power.
Okay, understood. Well, listen, it's been interesting talking to both of you. It's always quite sort of foggy and nebulous when we talk about Navalny. We're hoping to get Navalny himself on the Newsmakers at some point in time. We hope he'll accept our invitation. But for the moment, gentlemen, I have to move on. Alexander Artemyev and Sergei Markov, I thank you all for joining us.
Oh my God, please God, please God. Oh my God.
That's all for this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. You can check out more of our stories on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Remember to like, follow and subscribe. Next time, who killed Jamal Khashoggi? Well, Donald Trump sides with Mohammed bin Salman over his own intelligence agencies. We debate why. Until then, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.